export your pre-master at -6 dB. You need more headroom in your mixes if you want them to sound good. It is essential that you leave your mastering engineer with enough headroom to work with during the mastering process.
No, headroom is a complete myth. You don't need 3 to 6 decibels of headroom while rendering out your mix to send to a mastering engineer. In fact, you can have your mix RMS or peak anywhere below 0 dB. It can be -0.0001 dB. It doesn't matter as long as nothing goes above 0 dB, nothing clips, and there's nothing different with the signal if it was 3 dB or 6 dB quieter than what you had it before. If your mastering engineer wants some headroom to work with, they'll simply just turn your mix down a little bit so that they can do whatever compression, EQ, and limiting stages, whatever they want there. Your signal is completely fine as long as it's not clipping, so you don't need to worry about having a super quiet mix to prepare to master. I'm going to jump into FL right now and show you why that is the case. I'm going to be going through 3 different mixes on the exact same song and show you why all of them are actually the same when they all have different levels of headroom. So I do want to address what I have on the master chain. This is just a patcher preset. This is just to build up some hype and build tension during the build-ups before the drop. The Ceiling Loudest Meter is a simple analyzer plugin, and this Fruity Balance is just to have some fade in and fade out at the beginning and end of the track. So there's nothing typically that you would have on a master right here. There's no compression, there's no EQ, there's no limiting, there's none of that. It's just the pure mix down. So let's take a listen to this track. Alright, so from our analyzer here, the true peak of this track is actually at -9 dB. This is super quiet. If you were taking a look at the levels over here, we were RMSing at about -11 to -10 dB. Now RMS just means the average volume of the track. We're going to boost the entire mix by 5 dB and see what happens. So for the people that say headroom matters, this mixdown right here would be ideal. We have a peak of -3.8 decibels, and we're averaging at about -7.5 decibels for the whole track. Okay, so mix number 3 is the exact same as the other 2, but it's boosted 8 decibels from where we originally started. Now I skipped to a louder part of the song from the other 2 so I can show you where this is true peaking, and it's very close to 0 dB, but it doesn't reach 0 dB. So this mix is cutting it pretty close. It peaks at -0.2 dB, and by the standard of headroom, this is an unacceptable mix, but it's still the same as the other 2, and I'm going to show you why. So I've rendered out all 3 mixes and dumped them into the playlist here, and we're going to take a look at all of them. Take a look at our quietest one. Obviously, there's no clipping here. There's more than enough headroom to work with, about over 9 dB. Our second one is an acceptable amount of headroom between -3 and -6. This is about what they tell you to do before when you prepare a master to send to a mastering engineer. Now our third one, remember this one true peaked at -0.2 dB. This file right here is labeled as unacceptable to send to a mastering engineer, but that's just a myth, and we're going to go into why. So let's take a look at this one here, and as you can see, there is no clipping going on. Now if I stretch this all the way out, you can see that the loudest point of the track is not hitting the ceiling over here, which means it's not clipping at all. So there's nothing wrong with it. Now we can go ahead and say that this is the exact same file as the other 2 when we reduce it enough so that the volume matches. And this is exactly what your mastering engineer is going to do when they see an audio file like this and they need to work with it. And if they want headroom, they're just going to reduce the volume by however much they want. Now audio works linearly until it clips. Now what this means is that if I have a track at -20 dB and I boost it 10 decibels and render that out, those two are the exact same thing minus the volume difference. Now let's say I boosted it, rendered it out, and then I reduce it back down 10 decibels to what it originally was. It's going to be the same exact audio file. And this is the concept that I'm working with these three files. There's no harmonic differences, there's no compression differences, there's no actually real difference in the audio besides the volume. And the volume is something that you can change so easily with a simple fader. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this supposedly unacceptable master and I'm just going to reduce it by 3 decibels and then render it out. So side by side, I have our loudest version reduced by 3 decibels and our medium loud version side by side. They're exactly at the same volume. Now I'm going to play them each individually while switching back and forth between them. You guys tell me if you hear a difference between the two. I was swapping back between these two files pretty fast, and it sounded like they were the exact same thing. And that's because they are the exact same thing. When you have a file that's labeled as unacceptable for mastering because it doesn't have between 3 and 6 decibels of headroom, but it's not clipping and it's not peaking above 0 dB, what your mastering engineer is going to do is simply just turn it down before they start putting EQ compression and eventually limiting on it. So that is why headroom is a total myth. Just don't have your mixes clip above 0 dB. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.